Deep inside a South African cave, scientists discovered the bones of a human species that should not have made sense. Its brain was small, its body mixed primitive and surprisingly modern features, and its remains were found in chambers so difficult to reach that one question still divides researchers. Did Homo naledi deliberately carry its dead underground? If so, then behavior once considered uniquely human may have existed in a species far more ancient and mysterious than anyone expected. This is the Homo naledi mystery. The story began in South Africa's Rising Star cave system. The caves were already known to local explorers, but in 2013, two cavers entered a remote section and noticed bones scattered across the floor of an almost inaccessible chamber. The route was extreme. To reach the chamber, explorers had to move through narrow tunnels, climb steep rock formations, and squeeze through a passage only around 18 centimeters wide at its tightest point. Beyond that constriction was a chamber later known as Dinaledi. Inside were hundreds of fossil fragments, then thousands. They came from multiple individuals belonging to a previously unknown member of the human family. The discovery was extraordinary not only because of the number of fossils, but because of their location. Large predators did not appear to have dragged the bodies there. There was little evidence that water had washed them into the chamber. The bones did not show the usual pattern expected from a mass animal trap. Somehow, these individuals ended up deep inside the cave. The question was how. When researchers reconstructed Homo naledi, they found what seemed like an impossible combination of features. Its brain was small, possibly comparable in size to that of much earlier human relatives. Its shoulders were shaped in a way that suggested climbing remained important. Its curved fingers also resembled those of species that spent significant time in trees. Yet other parts of its body looked surprisingly advanced. Its feet were broadly human-like. Its legs were suited for walking upright. Its hands were capable of powerful gripping. But the thumb and wrist may also have allowed precise manipulation. Homo naledi appeared to be a mosaic, part ancient climber, part long-distance walker, part tool-capable human relative. If scientists had found individual bones in separate places, they might have assumed they belonged to different species. But together, they formed one strange body. At first, many researchers believed such a primitive-looking species must have lived millions of years ago. Then dating results produced another surprise. Homo naledi may have lived between roughly 335,000 and 236,000 years ago. That meant it survived during a period when early Homo sapiens were also present in Africa. This was not simply an ancient transitional creature from the distant beginning of humanity. It may have lived alongside members of our own species. Africa was not inhabited by one kind of human. It was a landscape shared by different human forms. The Dinaledi Chamber contained remains from individuals of many different ages. That made a single accident difficult to explain. Could several members of the species have become lost inside the cave at different times? Possibly. But the route was so difficult that repeated accidental entries seemed unusual. Could flooding have carried the remains inward? Researchers found limited evidence for that explanation. Could predators have used the chamber as a den? Again, there was little sign of heavy animal damage on the bones. This led some researchers to propose a much more dramatic possibility. Homo naledi may have deliberately placed bodies inside the cave, not necessarily with rituals identical to those of modern humans, not necessarily with religion, mourning ceremonies, or beliefs about an afterlife, but perhaps with enough social awareness to remove the dead from living spaces and carry them into a protected underground chamber. If this happened, it would challenge a long-standing assumption. Complex treatment of the dead had often been connected with large brains and advanced symbolic thought. Homo naledi had a small brain, yet brain size alone may not determine the full range of behavior. The idea that Homo naledi buried its dead became even more controversial when researchers announced possible evidence of shallow depressions containing remains. Some interpreted these as graves. Other scientists were unconvinced. To prove intentional burial, researchers must rule out natural processes that could move bones, disturb sediment, or create apparent pits. The cave environment is complex. Bodies decompose. Sediment shifts. Water moves through cracks. Animals disturb remains. What looks like a deliberate burial can sometimes result from natural forces acting over thousands of years. Some specialists argued that the evidence had been announced before it was strong enough. Others believed the pattern deserved serious consideration. This disagreement is important. The mystery of Homo naledi does not need exaggeration. The confirmed facts are already remarkable. A previously unknown human relative lived surprisingly recently. Its remains were repeatedly found deep inside a difficult cave system. Its body combined primitive and advanced traits. Whether those bodies were deliberately placed there remains an open question. Science does not become weaker when experts disagree. This is how difficult discoveries are tested. Another claim raised the mystery even further. Researchers reported signs that Homo naledi may have used fire inside the cave. Blackened areas, possible hearth-like features and soot deposits were described in parts of the cave system. If Homo naledi controlled fire underground, the implications would be enormous. Navigating the cave without artificial light would have been extraordinarily difficult. Torches or small fires could have allowed groups to move through passages, visit chambers, and possibly transport bodies. But once again, the evidence remains debated. Charcoal and blackened surfaces must be securely dated and directly connected to Homo naledi. Fire may have entered the cave during a later period. Material can move through sediments. Without clear dating, the relationship remains uncertain. The possibility is fascinating. But possibility is not proof. Researchers also identified cross-hatched lines carved into cave surfaces. Some appeared geometric. If Homo naledi created them, they might represent intentional marking or symbolic behavior. But the challenge is the same. The marks must be dated. Their origin must be established. Modern people or later prehistoric visitors may also have entered parts of the cave. Attributing wall markings to an extinct species requires exceptionally strong evidence. The claims remain controversial because they would dramatically expand what scientists believe small-brained human relatives were capable of doing. That makes careful testing even more necessary. Homo naledi forces us to confront an uncomfortable idea. Human evolution was not a simple ladder. Species did not line up from primitive to advanced, each becoming smarter than the one before. Different traits evolved at different times. A small brain did not necessarily mean simple behavior. A species could retain climbing adaptations while also walking efficiently on the ground. A creature could possess ancient anatomy yet live alongside early modern humans. Evolution produces experiments. Some survive, some vanish, and for a time many different forms can exist together. Homo naledi may have been one of those experiments. It endured in southern Africa while other human populations were developing new tools, hunting strategies, and social networks. We do not yet know whether Homo naledi made stone tools. We do not know what language, if any, it possessed. We do not know whether it feared the dead, honored them, or simply removed them. But the cave preserves a behavior that natural explanations have not fully settled. Bodies repeatedly entered the darkness, and someone, or something, was responsible. Like every other human species except our own, Homo naledi eventually disappeared. Its population may always have been small. It may have depended on a limited habitat. Climate shifts could have disrupted its food sources. Competition with other human groups may have placed pressure on its survival. Interbreeding is another possibility. Although there is currently no widely accepted genetic evidence linking Homo naledi directly to living people. Because usable DNA has not yet been recovered, much of its story remains trapped in bone and stone. Its extinction may never have been a dramatic final event. There may have been no last battle, no single catastrophe. Small populations can disappear quietly. A few generations fail, birth rates decline, habitats shrink, and eventually an entire form of humanity is gone. Homo naledi matters because it disrupts the boundaries we created around humanity. We once associated complex behavior with a particular brain size. Homo naledi warns us that the relationship may not be so simple. We imagined that primitive anatomy belonged only to the distant past. Homo naledi survived into a much more recent world. We thought humanity's story moved forward in a straight line. The Rising Star Cave reveals a tangled tree filled with branches that lived, adapted, and vanished. Perhaps Homo naledi deliberately buried its dead. Perhaps natural processes created an appearance that scientists have not yet fully explained. For now, the cave keeps its answer. But one fact cannot be disputed. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, another kind of human moved through southern Africa. It walked upright. It climbed. It survived in a world shared with other humans. And somehow, members of its species entered one of the darkest chambers beneath the earth. The bones remained there long after their species vanished, waiting for us to discover that the human story was never as simple as we imagined. The past is far stranger than we think, and this is only one chapter. Subscribe to discover our mysterious past.